sweltering, brutal, dangerous. There are plenty of words to describe the heat wave that swept over the Houston area for basically the entire month of June. Some of them aren't exactly suitable for TV. As we weather these temperatures, KHOU 11 is standing for Houston by keeping you informed and aware of how best to cope. Hey there, I'm digital anchor Brandy Smith. In this KHOU 11 Plus special, we'll explore the problems the heat generated, how you can keep it in check, and what you can do to keep your family safe. It's information that will help you through this heat wave and really summer in Houston in general. Before we get going, wherever and whenever you're watching this, you can text the word HEAT to 713-526-1111 and we'll send you helpful links. You can also text weather for a link to the forecast. Okay, now let's answer the biggest question. Why was June so hot? Meteorologist Kim Castro is here with the answer.
June got to be this hot. We're talking about feeling like 100 to 110 for about 3 weeks because of the bad combination of heat and humidity. Let's first talk about the heat, this high pressure heat dome that stayed parked right over us. High pressure works like this. It spins down and drops dry, sinking air. The higher this high pressure area grows, the more that air has to drop down and the hotter we get. The reason for that, we see more and more of the weight of the atmosphere on top of us. Think of it like when you're at the gym. You put more weight on the barbell, the more pressure you feel, the hotter you get, the more you sweat. At the surface, we also had a lot of that Gulf moisture streaming in. You heard us talk about the dew points and the measure of how much humidity is in the atmosphere. When those dew points get to the 70s, it means there is so much moisture in the air that when you sweat, the atmosphere can't evaporate it and cool you off. So all that sweat stays stuck to your skin. And well, dew points in the 70s means it's getting sticky. We saw them get closer and closer to 80, which means we saw the instant sweat. Keeping you weather smart, I'm meteorologist Kim Castro.
This heat isn't just concerning, it can be deadly. A construction worker in our area died after working in blistering temperatures. 46-year-old Philippe Pasquale was pouring concrete at a job site in Fort Bend County on June 16th when he collapsed. Pasquale was taken to Memorial Hermann Hospital in Pearland, where he was pronounced dead. A medical examiner confirmed hyperthermia as the cause. As I'm recording this, his was the first heat-related death in our area, but not in Texas. The scorching heat is to blame for more than a dozen deaths across the state just so far this year. The high temperatures can lead to dehydration, heat exhaustion, heat stroke, or death. OSHA, the federal labor agency, called on Texas businesses to protect workers from the dangerously hot weather. OSHA officials say workers should drink water every 15 minutes and take frequent rest breaks in the shade to cool down. And employees should have an emergency plan when a worker shows signs of heat-related illness. Officials say employers should train workers to recognize the dangers of heat exposure and illness prevention and let them work shorter shifts to build a tolerance for working in the heat.
And I really worry about the people who are outdoors, working outdoors or exercising during the hottest part of the day. And, sometimes, some years we have people die from heat stroke. So this can be very, very dangerous. And it's very important that people pay attention to the weather and protecting themselves when we get these heat waves.
People who work outdoors, and really anyone planning to do anything outside, needs to know the symptoms for heat exhaustion and heat stroke. If you feel faint or dizzy, if you have a weak pulse, muscle cramps, or the rest of the symptoms on your screen right now, you may be experiencing heat exhaustion and you need to get to a place with air conditioning and hydrate as quickly as possible. Now, if you have a throbbing headache, your pulse is strong, but you've stopped sweating, that could be heat stroke. And at that point, you need to call 911. When it is so hot for an extended period of time, we're all vulnerable. Sherman Chow broke down what to watch out for if you're staying active in the heat.
Yeah, guess what? It's hot out here. Yeah, you knew that. Well, take a look behind me. Kids are enjoying the splash pad here, staying cool, which is great for these little guys. But the older we get, we may not listen as well to parents, doctors, and coaches. Kids love team sports, and from baseball to football, they'll play and practice under the brutal sun. It's bad enough playing on grass and in heavy gear, but experts say it's tennis that sends a surprising number of kids to the hospital each summer with heat exhaustion or stroke, with symptoms ranging from heavy sweating and clammy skin to confusion, vomiting, and passing out.
Think about a child who's on an asphalt tennis court where the temperature on the court is probably 110 degrees versus the air temperature of maybe 98 or 95. So we see that a lot in kids playing outdoor sports on hot surfaces. They just don't think about it. They don't really rest in between, games and hydrate.
Hospitals will give the kids IVs, cooling blankets to bring their body temperatures down. But well ahead of that, kids of all ages should drink H2O before you even leave your house and continuously throughout the day. Keep your body cool as best you can, and maybe that means hitting a splash pad and finding your inner little kid. And if you would like, head to KHOU.com where we have a list of splash pads available here in Houston.
A few more tips we really want to hammer home if you go outside. Stay hydrated, apply sunscreen regularly, and wear light-colored, loose-fitting clothing. Always check your back seat for children and pets before you lock your car and head inside. The triple-digit feels-like temperatures prompted local communities to open up cooling centers, and other organizations opened up their doors too. Zach Tawatari took us to one.
With the city baking in an excessive heat warning, most Houstonians are opting to stay indoors.
I probably would have stayed home in bed.
But there's another place you can go.
Pretty much wherever you live, there's going to be a Y.
Greater Houston YMCA's opening their doors, lanes, and buckets to the public.
So this weekend we're a designated cooling center, which means that anyone in the city can walk into any YMCA and open a guest pass account.
Trotter Family YMCA Healthy Living Director Monica Ward says guest passes give you access to everything a full member can use.
Also, you can come in and you can use the showers. You can come work out. A mom can check her kids into Child Watch and just have like a moment of peace in the cool.
Guest passes are typically good for about 3 visits, but under this excessive heat warning.
And if they run out of those 3 visits and we're still a designated cooling center, we'll let them come in and sign up for another one.
Jose Cortez and his family enjoyed a very hot Father's Day poolside.
It was like super hot, so we decided to come to the pool and to chill a little bit. Yeah, it refreshed us.
While Kelly Glazer and Jeremiah Sauls shot some hoops while staying comfortable.
Playing basketball and swimming.
You can spend all day doing different kinds of sports that he doesn't usually always get to do, so it's awesome.
The heat got so bad, Houston Methodist says it saw a big increase in patients with heat-related issues. We're talking 30 to 40 people a day. Janelle Bluda learned not all of them had to be hospitalized, but plenty did.
Friends Priscilla and Cynthia take Buster for a walk almost every day.
When it's really hot, and you just don't want to get out there.
But these past few weeks, they've been extra careful.
I try to avoid anywhere between like 11 and 2 because that's when it's really the warmest.
Houston Methodist says last week's extreme heat.
What we're seeing now is a sudden or dramatic increase in temperatures, and this is causing patients to become dehydrated extremely quickly.
Led to an unusual increase in patients showing up to the ER, suffering from heat cramps, heat fatigue, and exhaustion and dehydration.
Tell me, is this unusual for this time of the year?
We usually see some of these patients and cases closer to July, August, and September. This is the first time that I can remember in the last 10 years that we've ever seen patients coming into the hospital in June with these kinds of symptoms.
Dr. Neil Gandhi says most patients are fine after treatment, but a few have been hospitalized. And about 80% of those patients were over the age of 65, as there's some who are most at risk, especially those on diuretic medications.
With this rapid rise in temperatures, these patients can become dehydrated extremely quickly, and that can be a pretty catastrophic combination for that patient.
And remember, kids are more susceptible too. Symptoms you need to watch out for include feeling faint or dizzy, excessive sweating, nausea, even muscle cramps.
You'll start to get dizzy or you get that lightheaded feeling. Stop. Hydrate, get out of the heat, get in where it's cool.
The oppressive heat is something delivery drivers and postal workers face every day too. It got to be too much for one driver caught on camera nearly collapsing while trying to do his job. Jason Miles explained it's another heat-related emergency that could have turned deadly.
Seconds after approaching a home last night with a pile of packages, this Amazon contract driver got his own unwanted delivery. A heat-related episode brought on by the blazing weather.
This is something that can affect anybody.
Cy-Fair Fire Assistant Chief of EMS Justin Reed reports twice as many heat-related calls this month than last August and September combined.
Just for the month of June, the Cy-Fair Fire Department has responded to over 40 responses for heat-related illness. That's where it's the primary cause of us going out.
He and others used a training dummy to illustrate part of their response.
But if your core temperature is above 104, that's when we start worrying about you're now pushing from heat exhaustion to heat stroke.
It's hard to see the gauge, but the dummy's temperature dramatically decreased during a misting and fanning procedure, typically done in the back of an ambulance.
So this is something like super low tech that not a lot of people have jumped onto. That is extremely effective.
According to Amazon, this worker did not require emergency help, adding in a statement, quote, "We're very thankful to report this delivery driver is okay and feeling well. We'll continue to monitor the driver's condition, and we appreciate the customer bringing this to our attention." The company says there's nothing more important than the safety and health of employees and delivery partners, especially during times of extreme temperatures.
Amazon added that all branded vehicles have AC and that employees and delivery partners are supplied fluids and encouraged to take breaks. You can read the full statement on KHOU.com. The U.S. Postal Service changed its delivery schedules in Texas after a letter carrier passed out on his route and later died. Investigators haven't said whether his death was heat-related, but feels like temperatures were around 113 degrees when he collapsed. That raised concerns about start times, and USPS shifted schedules up an hour, so carriers start their routes at 7:30 a.m. instead of 8:30 a.m. A general rule to follow: if it is too hot outside for you, it is too hot for your pets. The Houston SPCA rescued several animals, but it was too late for one that didn't make it. Janelle Bluda reported on the heartbreaking discovery.
The Houston SPCA says this is the third animal death they've had this summer, and they want to remind people not taking care of your pet is a crime. It was a heavy discovery for Houston SPCA investigators Monday when inside a backyard they found a dog chained to a fence, no longer alive.
There's an animal who was confined, baking in the sun. And when we got there, the animal was deceased.
Julie Kinstall with the Houston SPCA says they believe the dog had been dead at least a week. And because of that, the exact cause of death cannot be determined. But the Houston SPCA believes heat played a major factor in its death, along with the dog having no access to shelter or water.
And that's devastating. Any single loss of life that could have been prevented, it's very frustrating.
Also inside that backyard, they rescued 2 other dogs and 4 puppies, who today a judge granted the SPCA custody.
There was another dog who was chained, but he also had roaming access to the garage where there was some shade.
Kinstall says this is the 3rd animal death they've had so far this summer, and they've responded to an unprecedented number of heat-related calls. 243 in the first 20 days of June.
Last year we had about 87 calls during that time period, and so we're talking close to 3 times that number.
Some of those cases include a Chihuahua wearing a sweater in 100-degree heat, a dog left outside in a wire kennel, and earlier this month they rescued a puppy that was kept outside in a bird cage.
And if you are going to leave your pets outside, which we don't recommend, you need to, and the law says, you have to give them adequate food, water, and shelter. Be mindful of the sun.
Precinct 1 Constable's office says they are investigating this pup's death, and they will turn their entire report over to the district attorney's office for review. Now, the punishment for animal cruelty charges could be up to 2 years in prison and a $10,000 fine. If you see an animal that needs help, call the Houston SPCA. Their number is 713-869-7722.
Even well-intentioned dog owners can make painful choices for their pups. So Brandon Lewis from our National Verify team got answers to some of the most common questions.
Temperatures are starting to creep up, and when we're doing almost anything to keep ourselves cool, our dogs are also panting just as much as we're sweating. So here are 3 fast facts about hot weather and dogs. First, a viral Facebook post warns owners should avoid giving their dogs ice cubes because it can cause their body temperature to increase. So, let's verify. Is it dangerous to give ice cubes to dogs? These are our sources. You've probably seen dogs lapping up water after playing on a hot day, but the American Kennel Club warns if they drink too much water at once, it can cause water intoxication, which can lead to vomiting, bloat, and, in severe cases, can be deadly. Instead, they recommend giving dogs ice cubes to slow their water intake until they're calmer, while also helping to safely reduce their body temperature. The Kennel Club says claims that ice cubes can increase a dog's body temperature are not true. So, no, it is not dangerous to give ice cubes to dogs. Next, you know the expression, "it's so hot you can fry an egg on the street"? Remember, dogs walk on that same street, barefoot. So, can hot asphalt injure a dog's feet? These are our sources. On a picture-perfect 70-degree day, then your dog is fine to walk on the pavement. But the American Kennel Club says if it's hotter than 85 degrees outside, then the asphalt is likely too hot. This is because asphalt absorbs heat. At 85 degrees, the pavement can be as hot as 135 degrees. And at 100 degrees, vet Ed Faulkner says pavement can reach 160 degrees. Those temperatures are hot enough to cause blisters and burns on your dog's paws. Shallowford Animal Hospital recommends putting your hand on the ground, and if it's too hot for you to keep it there for 10 seconds, then it's too hot for your dog. So, yes, hot pavement can injure a dog's feet. Finally, while we're talking about paws, have you seen posts like these claiming dogs sweat through their paws? So, let's verify using these sources. The American Kennel Club says dogs have two types of sweat glands. The ones on their bodies release pheromones, but not sweat. This is because most dogs are covered in fur, which wouldn't allow the sweat to evaporate and keep them cool. The other type of gland is on their paws, and those release a bit of sweat. So, yes, dogs do sweat through their paws, but it's not the primary way they stay cool. That would be through panting, according to Dr. Faulkner, which causes moisture to evaporate from their tongues, nose, and lungs. Dogs still rely on their humans for help when it's hot, so it's important to watch for the signs of heat exhaustion, like excessive panting or drooling, dizziness or weakness, and then get them indoors and give them cool water, or a few ice cubes. With your Verify, I'm Brandon Lewis.
Pets have, or at least should have, humans looking out for them. When it's this hot, wild animals need your attention too. The Houston SPCA says it's treating a growing number of starved and dehydrated critters, but there are ways you can help. First, remove dirt and debris from bird baths and fill them with fresh water at least once a day. Next, put out extra birdseed in your yard. Check under trees for distressed wild animals, and if you find one and it's safe to do so, put it in a box with soft rags and get it to the Houston SPCA's Wildlife Center. There are more tips on houstonspca.org. I don't think I'm blowing any minds here by suggesting the best and safest option for you, your family, and your pets is to stay inside where it's air conditioned. But the only way the AC stays on is if the Texas power grid stays up. And that's all dependent on Mother Nature cooperating. Stephanie Whitfield spotlighted ERCOT's reliance on wind and solar to handle demand.
As Texans sweat through a record-breaking heat wave, the ERCOT Board of Directors is planning ahead for the rest of summer. They expect the Lone Star State to break the all-time record demand for power. The problem is, gas, coal, and nuclear energy fall about 10,000 megawatts short of that projection. ERCOT officials say wind and solar power are crucial when demand for power is high.
The assessment of resource adequacy for high-demand days is going to be very dependent on wind. And that's just the reality of where we are. Every day we'll have to look at what the wind is doing.
This graph on ERCOT's website shows wind and solar will produce enough power to bridge the gap this week.
And even though we are going to go through a period of pretty hot weather here, including today and the next few days, the overall look this summer is still expected to be more like a normal summer.
Officials with the power grid operator say they also have new options for reserve power on standby, just in case. Stephanie Whitfield, KHOU 11 News.
Of course, there's always the frankly terrifying possibility that your HVAC unit breaks down. Zach Tawatari talked to experts about how to keep yours running.
Under a blazing sun, you probably don't think about your air conditioner when it's working, but when it's not, you certainly feel it.
You have to have AC here in Houston.
Jonan Navarro is a senior technician at the Chill Brothers who provide cooling, heating, and air purification services to the greater Houston area. He says the recent heat wave has definitely caused a surge in business. Often, he says, people wait until their units aren't working at all, but recommends looking first for climbing numbers on your thermostat.
77, starts to go 78, 79, it's not cooling. That's a telltale sign that something's wrong with the unit.
As for what could be wrong with your unit, Jonan says a common problem when temperatures spike is this thing called a capacitor.
I'm starting to bubble out, and that's because these overheat.
And for preventing higher costs, maintenance is key. Most people don't realize that companies offer biannual maintenance to keep your units running smoothly.
Maintenance is a big importance to the unit.
Which he says starts with filters. Dirty ones like these can cause your unit to work a lot harder. So how often should you replace them?
Anywhere from 3 weeks to a month for this, like the 1-inch filters.
And as for the unit itself, keeping it clean is important.
So I'll just get a garden hose, even with your thumb, and just go up and down with it.
And when it comes to a fix or other maintenance, here's what part of that unit looks like inside. Jonan says you don't want to get your wires crossed.
It's very important to have a trained professional come and check these units out.
In spring, Zach Tawatari, KHOU 11 News.
Blasting your AC can be satisfying until you get your power bill. Stephanie Whitfield is back with some simple tricks that can save you money.
Keeping your house cool during the heat of summer comes at a cost, but experts say you can save energy and cash by making a few changes.
Hands down, the most expensive appliances to run in any house are whatever you use to heat or cool.
Paul Hope with Consumer Reports says your AC won't have to work as hard if you replace filters regularly and close vents in rooms you aren't using. You should also consider turning up the thermostat. He says every degree helps.
Generally speaking, every degree you raise your thermostat, you'll save about 3% on your cooling costs. So if you're paying, $300 a month, $400 a month in summer to cool your house, you could be saving, over $120 a month just with that one simple change.
Experts say fans are an even cheaper alternative. They use 80% less energy than air conditioning, so flipping the fan on and AC off is a great way to save a lot of money if you're willing to sweat it out.
Okay, so what about outside your home, your lawn, your garden? Stephanie's got tips for that too.
The hotter it gets, the more water your yard needs to survive the Texas heat. But experts say there are steps you can take to save money. First, adding new plants is the biggest landscaping cost, so consider starting from seed. Another tip is to use mulch. It's an inexpensive way to keep moisture in, so you need to water less. Paul Hope is the senior home and garden editor for Consumer Reports.
So one easy thing people can do is install timed sprinklers, which will really cut back on the water consumption that your yard needs. And a step above that is using smart sprinklers, which actually monitor the forecast for your area and adapt the water cycle to match the forecast.
Consumer Reports says that can cut your outdoor water use in half, saving you up to $150 a year.
Broken AC units aren't just a nightmare for homeowners during the summer. Businesses, especially restaurants, kept repair crews working overtime. Janelle Bluda took us to Harold's in the Heights to see how it's handling the heat.
As the heat wave continues to hover over Houston, in its direct line of fury sits air conditioning units working hard to do one job.
HVAC units are only designed to cool 15 to 25 degrees less than what the temperature is.
Owner of Harold's Restaurant in the Heights, Allie Jarrett,
in the restaurant business, you just give it about 5 minutes and something will break.
Says even though her HVAC systems are properly maintained, the heat,
your AC units are running constantly, they're running on overtime, they never get a break,
has been taking its toll.
And eventually, if there's some kind of little flaw, it'll find itself in these severe temperatures.
She says in the past 2 weeks, she's spent roughly $5,000 fixing AC issues at both Harold's and her other restaurant, Low Tide Kitchen and Bar.
You just try to fix it as quickly as possible.
Today, she's also added portable AC units at Harold's to help support the system downstairs. It's an issue she says many restaurants are currently dealing with.
Every single person, business owners and homeowners, are dealing with this challenge.
The Texas Restaurant Association reminds restaurants to inspect inspect and maintain their cooling and HVAC equipment, and to make sure they have a plan in place in case they need to respond to a breakdown, and to remind their team members to follow heat illness prevention measures. Jarrett says with these issues combined with energy costs, restaurants could use your support, especially during the summer. We have some tips on how to regularly maintain your AC unit on our website, KHOU.com.
Our cars are susceptible to the heat too. Shoot, our chief meteorologist, David Paul, had his car battery die because of the high temperatures. Why can extreme heat take a huge toll on your vehicle? We're no stranger to heat waves here in Houston, and we all know that triple-digit temps can hit the human body hard, but those extreme temperatures can also affect your car. According to AAA, that's because heat interferes with your vehicle's ability to operate, making pretty much every part of your car work harder. One of the big problems? Your battery. Extreme heat affects the chemical process inside the battery, making it harder for it to hold a charge and produce power. Your tires can also have issues. AAA says high temperatures can affect tire pressure, causing uneven wear on your tires. That increases the likelihood of a blowout, especially when pavement temperatures are high. The hot weather can also affect your car starting. When an engine is too hot, fuel doesn't circulate as well, and that can mean your car struggles to start. So what can you do? Well, if possible, park in the shade. Also, give your car a checkup. That means checking your battery twice a year. Keep an eye on your tire pressure too. Take a reading once a month and do it after it's been sitting a while. And it's easier for your car to keep cool if the coolant is working well. So check those levels, make sure it hasn't degraded. And then there are the roads. They're crumbling and buckling all over the Houston area, keeping repair crews busy. Lauren Tallarico explained how those trouble spots could damage your car.
Highway 6 buckling. A giant hole opening on the Beltway frontage road. And surface roads crumbling.
I got 2 flat tires and only 1 spare.
All thanks to the extreme heat.
Seen several instances over the last few days.
Danny Perez with TxDOT says their crews have been busy trying to combat the damage caused by the weather.
We do have these types of issues at different times, but we're seeing a lot more frequency because of the heat.
One issue is thermal expansion. Put simply, concrete expands in the heat, and when it has nowhere to go, it can buckle. Highway 6 buckled near Manville yesterday, shutting down main lanes during repairs, which TxDOT says could take days. Perez says the heat also causes pavement to break up on the surface, saying usually our roads have more time to get used to the heat as the temperatures gradually get hotter. But this extreme heat wave happened fast and earlier than our roads are used to.
We're seeing more of the frontage road impacts, but we've seen some of the ramps, we've seen some main lane impacts as well.
We saw several people with popped tires and busted rims. But in Texas, don't count on help covering those costs. Drivers must usually count on road hazard insurance for any help. Although in Houston, you can file a claim, but it's a long shot and you must meet certain criteria. Meanwhile, as long as this heat continues, it's wise to drive even more carefully than usual.
The problems kept coming. This is a shot from Air 11 over the East Freeway feeder road at Wayside. Crews had to work overnight to get repairs done. That's going to do it for this KHOU 11 special on the June heat wave. As always, you can get much more detailed information on KHOU.com, or you can text keywords like heat and forecast to 713-526-1111. We'll send you back those helpful links. Thanks for watching. I'm Brandi Smith.